Meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission on April 2nd, thank you, 2025, at the Don B. Griffin Room at Harwich Town Hall. This is a hybrid meeting. Participation is possible in person in the room and online through GoToMeeting. Log-on instructions are available on the Town of Harwich website in the agenda for this meeting. We're going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight is a notice of intent for Main Street / Route 28, map 11, parcel B4-0 for water main replacement. This is a continuance from our March 19, 2025 meeting. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Bob Drake. I'm with GHD. I'm here on behalf of the town. We're the town's consultant or design engineer for this project. And with me is
Eric Woodbury, his wingman.
So we were before you last time. We presented all the information before you at our last meeting, and the plans are proposed design, how we were going to attempt to minimize the impacts to the environment and so forth, which the board had a couple suggestions for us as far as controlling the dewatering and stuff. And it was more or less all agreed upon at that time. The only thing we were waiting for was a review from the fisheries, which we have recently received. And I believe you have it in front of you, their letter of recommendation, which basically states that they reviewed the plans and they saw no adverse effects to the fisheries in the river and so forth. And they had a couple of recommendations which we've presented to you at our last meeting as far as trying to control the sediment, as far as silt socks around the two openings or launch areas for the directional drill, and that any dewatering would go into catch basins or which would have silt sacks in them. So.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
I would recommend approval of the project with the conditions added to our special conditions that Division of Marine Fisheries wanted us to consider about a contingency plan to minimize risk of a frack out, appropriate containment measures to be deployed, and land-based equipment not being refueled in the proximity of the resource areas. So, and adequate containment measures and as well. So with those conditions, I would recommend you approve the notice of intent.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have anything.
No
Good.
questions.
Nothing to add.
Sophia? What's a frack out?
That's when you're doing a directional drill, when you're drilling the hole itself. You pump the hole, since there's a void now in the ground, with a concrete bituminous, excuse me, not bituminous, what's that?
Bentonite.
Yeah, thank you. Bentonite solution mix, which is a clay, non-environmentally hazardous material. So it keeps the hole open as you pull the pipe through, so the hole doesn't collapse.
I see, okay.
And sometimes, if there's a weak link in the soils, it will come up through the link.
So the frack out is if the bentonite leaks out
Right.
of the hole.
Hydraulic fracture is what it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there any comments or questions from the public? There do not appear to be. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the notice of intent for Main Street Route 28, map 11, parcel B4-0 with Amy's added conditions.
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next, we have a notice of intent for the town of Harwich, Route 28. No map specified, no parcel specified for roadway improvements.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Tom Courier. I'm a MassDOT person. I'm the project manager with MassDOT, overseeing the design of this roadway improvement project on Route 28 in Harwich, beginning in Dennis, at the Dennis Town Line, going up to, is it the Herring River?
The Herring River Bridge.
Yeah. And this is Steve Rhodes of VHB, your designer. He's done your sidewalk project that's under construction right now. He's got projects all over the Cape, actually. This is scheduled to advertise in our fiscal year 2026 program in August, maybe the first week in September. We're just trying to get the design over the finish line. We're at that permitting stage right now. And Steve has a colleague online.
Yes, yeah. Bridget is online. She'll be doing the joint presentation with me this evening, so
Yeah.
we're happy to pull that up and run through it for you guys.
So the current cost is about 15, a little over 15 million right now for the total federal participating construction cost, and that's the last bit of information I had. So is Bridget ready to go?
She is available, yep.
There she is.
Is it best for me to pull the slides up?
Oh, you've got it, huh?
Yeah, they've got it loaded here.
Awesome.
Awesome. So I'm not sure I can see the slides, so I will do my best. Oh, there we go. Awesome. So just a quick project overview. As they mentioned, this project proposes improvements to the Route 28 highway corridor to improve pedestrian and bicycle byways, as well as upgrade the stormwater infrastructure. It extends from Upper County Road in Dennis to just west of the Herring River Bridge in Harwich. And the work is reviewable as a limited project under 310 CMR 10.523F. Next, please. So looking at the wetland resource areas we're working in proximity to, we do have the Herring River, which supports land underwater bodies and waterways, land subject to coastal storm flowage, riverfront area, bank, bordering vegetated wetland, salt marsh, and the associated 100-foot buffer zone and 50-foot no disturb zone. And so in these photos on the right at the top, you can see a southern view of wetland 1, looking at the salt marsh portion, as well as an associated buffer. And the bottom photo is a northern view of the Herring River. And again, it's associated buffer, riverfront area, and all of this is in land subject to coastal storm flowage.
So I'll jump in here and tell you guys a little bit more about the proposed work. So overall, the entire project from Dennis into Harwich is proposing to widen via reclamation of the existing pavement and box widening to get a consistent roadway section of 11-foot lanes and 5-foot shoulders. This will also reconstruct the portions of the road that have existing sidewalks, and portions that don't will have sidewalk added. So we're going to have a complete pedestrian accommodation on the north and south side of the roadway, connecting from the Herring River Bridge into downtown Dennisport. As part of that work, there will be new ADA-compliant pedestrian curb ramps and driveway transitions built into the sidewalk on each side of the road. So we'll have a fully ADA-compliant project. And underground, the things we don't see in the end, there's going to be some significant stormwater upgrades to the corridor. Today, we'll go into some more details in the slide down the road, but there's a lot of sporadic drainage which will be improved upon with the work. This is our construction plan of the east end of the project, which is the end we're here to talk about tonight, the Herring River. The river is on the right side of the image here. The bridge joint is currently our limit of work of physical service improvements, so we're not doing anything to the bridge. The sidewalks, as I mentioned, will be reconstructed on the north and the south side of the roadway up to the bridge. Those will meet in with existing sidewalks that are on the bridge today. And the roadway itself, at this point, it's wider than the typical section of the road throughout the corridor, but we're matching the existing width of the road here. We're kind of just tying into existing conditions at this point. So we have a smooth transition onto the bridge and heading east. The work off the road is comprised of some slope improvements. As part of putting in the sidewalk, we're going to kind of standardize the width of that walk and the guardrail that's behind the sidewalk, and we're going to push out the kind of rollover point of that slope a bit on the north. And so that'll necessitate some vegetation removal, which will be on the slope. And we have a replanting plan, which I received a few earlier questions about coordination through Amy, so I have some updates on that I can verbally give you guys. On the south side, the work is limited to some minor clearing of vegetation to support the reset utility poles. The poles are going to move from in the sidewalk today to the back of the sidewalk. So those poles being reset will just trigger the little bit of vegetation clearing there, more so trimming than clearing. So that's the south side is more limited tree work than the north side there. For stormwater management, we have a very colorful plan here, but drainage is essentially the structures, the little block structures you see kind of funneling into the middle of the roadway into a proposed trunk line. So the existing trunk line that Mass DOT owns and maintains will be updated. We're upsizing the pipe. And at this point, we're going to, within the dashed box here that I added to the slide, we're going to end our drainage improvements and tie into the existing system, which continues a little bit to the east before it takes a turn to the south and has an existing outfall in the river resource area. So we're not touching that. We're just improving up to a certain point in the road and then using the existing infrastructure that's there today. The stormwater design is compliant with Mass DEP stormwater standards. This is viewed as a limited project because it's maintenance and/or minor improvements, so it's compliant to the maximum extent practicable with the stormwater standards. For replanting on the slope, we have the swath that we're clearing, the trees, limited vegetation on the north side that can be replanted with shrubs. We understand through coordination with Amy that there may be some desire to swap out the chokeberry. We can definitely do that. We can add in whatever plants. I know you guys maintain the native plants list on the website. We can bring in, I believe, any plant species that's desired, Mass DOT would entertain. And we also heard some feedback about just mixing the plants on the slope. We can do that as well. We would just want to maintain one of either the sumac or the chokeberry on the slope itself to help kind of root into the slope and establish that vegetation in the final condition. And I will turn it back over to Bridget to talk about the work in the resource areas.
Thanks, Steve. So as part of the project, there will not be any work within Salt Marsh Bank or BBW. The work will be limited to the land subject to coastal storm flowage, the riverfront area, and then the 100-foot and 50-foot buffer zones. So looking at the permanent alterations, this will include the construction of new sidewalk. And you'll see it when we go to the next slide, there's a small strip of existing grass, and that's the areas that will be impacted with the sidewalk. You can see that here in the green and orange coloring. This will also include limited grubbing along that southern limit of work, as Steve mentioned. And looking at the temporary impacts, so this will include the full depth pavement and pavement milling within the existing roadway footprint, as well as the sidewalk and guardrail installation within the footprint as well, and then associated minor vegetation grubbing, installation of erosion controls, and the stormwater improvements. And we'll just note that within this zone, there will be no changes in flood elevation or the ability of the area to provide flood storage functions as a part of the work. And so this figure here, oh, actually, if you go back one more, sorry about that. So here, just to look at the impacts a bit more, in the blue and yellow, these areas show the temporary impacts to the 200-foot riverfront area. The blue is the inner 100 feet, and the yellow is the outer 100 feet. And as I mentioned, the orange and green, these are the permanent impacts in the riverfront area. And then you can see the whole area is pretty much hatched in that pink, and that's the work within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And then the next slide depicts the impacts to the buffer zones a bit more clearly. So that inner red portion is work within the 50-foot no disturb zone. It's approximately 4,231 square feet of work. And then the teal color, that's work within the outer portion of the 100-foot buffer zone. And that whole area is about 10,308 square feet of work. And then the purple hatching, this is the work within riverfront area. And this actually shows the riverfront that's currently degraded within the project site, and that's about 19,180 square feet of that degraded riverfront. And then in our next slide, we just present some of the mitigation measures, the erosion and sedimentation control plan that we are proposing as part of this project. So we are proposing to install erosion control barriers, as well as catch basin inlet protection and tree protection. And at the completion of work, we will loam and seed with a native seed mix to restore any disturbed areas. And I think with that, that's about it. If anyone has any questions.
All set?
All set?
Okay, thank you. Amy?
Thanks. Thank you. One thing I didn't catch until now is you don't claim Coastal Bank to be a resource area, and I do believe that it is, especially right by north and south of the river there. The landform is steep enough to constitute the slope needed for a coastal bank, and yeah, so it by definition would be a coastal bank in my opinion, and that should be added to the narrative and just address those performance standards. I don't think you'll have an issue doing that, but technically, your notice of intent needs to include that you
Reflect
have a
that.
coastal bank here.
Yeah, okay.
It was, I'm gonna focus mainly on the area by the Herring River. We understand that other parts of the project are also within flood zone, which is our jurisdiction. Me personally, I'm not as concerned about that as what's happening directly near the river. So it would have been helpful, and I apologize for not letting you know this sooner. I visited the site a couple of weeks ago. Didn't expect it to be staked out then, but when we visited the site yesterday, it would be really helpful to have at least a limit of work staked out on those banks. We can't tell, there's no staking, so we can't tell just how far the work is going. I think these improvements are a necessity. So in no way is this me trying to be negative about it, but it's just a little bit, we needed it to be a little bit clear about just how much disturbance we're talking about, and it's really much easier to see it when it's staked in the field.
Sure.
So you do have some temporary and permanent impacts, and we do view erosion control and keeping sediments out of sensitive areas as more of a necessity rather than mitigation. So can you talk a little bit about, I guess, in terms of mitigation, you claim stormwater improvements as a means of mitigation. Can you describe a little bit about what's currently there now and what you're gonna be doing that's better than what's there now?
So,
Sorry.
I'll give you a break. We're upsizing the trunk line to that point just west of the bridge. And we're adding deep sump catch basins on both sides of the roadway at the appropriate intervals along that route, from one end of the job to the other. I believe the current systems are mostly clogged up, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty silted up. And so what we replace is going to work a lot better. And the deep sumps will take out some of the solids before they, and we'll have hoods in all the catch basins as well. I believe that's the bulk of our improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to work with you on the plantings. What's out there currently is a mix of oak, cedar, and I think a couple pitch pine. So and I agree that we need to make sure the ground cover is a densely packed ground cover in order to keep your slope stable, but keeping in some of the native woody stuff
Absolutely.
if possible.
Whatever the
Something that
commission needs.
is there, so.
Sure.
Those are my comments for now.
Thank you. Sophia?
I have no questions.
No questions. Julie?
I think I would like to see the staking to get an idea. We were out there
Yeah.
yesterday as well. And I would want to see a mitigation plan, like further information on what's going to go in there. I don't know if it's appropriate now to ask kind of what the genesis of this project was and how the need was established. I don't know if it's not appropriate. I'm happy to, I know that's not
No,
purview we're interested
Just in general, it's a pedestrian bicycle improvement project. We wanted to continue what we had done in Dennis several years ago. VHB, different PM had designed about a mile of improvements leading up to the Harwich town line, or just about to the town line, in Dennisport. And then we're tying in from there and coming in to the Herring River into Harwich with the same cross-section of 211s, 2 5-foot shoulders, and the sidewalks. Formalizing the sidewalks and providing a wider shoulder for the bikes to ride in, and updating making it all ADA compliant, is what I'm trying to say.
There's also the
And the
kind of historic element that we worked with Duncan Berry on,
Oh, yeah.
and met in the fields
Yeah.
a couple occasions to talk about the lighting design and how it can fit in with the context of the corridor. So that's, the streetscape elements are kind of a key component of the project as well, beyond just the surface improvements.
That's right, they have become so, yeah.
Yeah.
We're adding a lot of ornamental lighting along the corridor that
And you said, you mentioned $15 million earlier. Is that,
that includes
state money?
lighting, yes. Yep.
State and
Lighting-
federal funds.
Lighting is on, from, MassDOT funds.
Is the lighting gonna be cast down?
Yeah, they're,
It's not, so it's not broadcast into our
right.
skies?
They're town-chosen ornamental fixtures at appropriate intervals. We work with Duncan and the Historic Commission to figure out where we'd want to, enhance the lighting, and where we'd want to just taper it out,
Thank
so
you.
it's not too bright.
thank you.
Wayne?
Yeah, this is a project that's been talked about for quite some time. I'm glad to see it's finally come to fruition here.
Yep.
It will in another year or so.
That's right.
My only concerns, my question is, it's been talked about putting a dry water main in and a sewer main for future. Is that gonna happen before they do this? Or are we gonna tear it up afterwards and, somebody?
Go ahead, Lynn.
Take it away, Link.
Thank you. Yes, that's part of the project. There's a delta, actually, we were just looking up the cost factor on this, and the delta is about $2 million, and that's the dry pipe that is going in as part of the sewer project.
No, but it's not out on the plan. I've been looking real close. I can't find any sewer mains, unless I've missed something. It's a pretty small plan.
It's hard to see.
It's small, there's water improvements in
That's,
blue.
that blue one is the
That
new
turns-
water main?
Yep, blue is new, so that turns to the directional drill under the river, which I believe
Alright.
was the prior case you just heard. And then there's sewer, I can't find it, I'll be honest, but it's on here.
It's in there.
All right, the only other thing I have is I'm just really concerned about having the drainage outfall go directly into the river. I mean, if you have an automobile accident or something down there and you got motor oil going in the catch basins, it's gonna go shoot, right in the river. What can we do about that?
That's a very difficult
I
question to
understand that,
answer.
yes. There's only so much room for drainage and leaching and all that stuff.
And permitting, in today's permitting environment, it's essentially impossible for us to permit a new outfall there. And to get it to drain. I mean, with
Right.
the current ocean water levels, all up and down 28 on the Cape, we are finding all our outfalls underwater already. And that the nature of the Cape, Route 28, is so flat, we don't, at the far end, or at the far end of any system, even if it's a chunk of the project, at the nearest high point, you don't have enough elevation to keep the end of the pipe, the outfall end, above the water. And that's driving why we're tying into existing at
You
the west
mentioned the
end.
catch basins are gonna have the hoods in them, the
Yes.
cast iron hoods.
That'll help with that
I've installed a lot
problem.
of these, and we used to, there was one unit we used to put in, the MDC traps, I think they're called, they're oil traps. Is that, am I,
I think that's
It's a long
what
time
we're
ago.
talking about, the hoods.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So it's supposed to keep the oil from going down the trunk line.
Anything floating on the surface will not get into the
Yeah, okay.
outlet pipe.
All right, Other than that's all I have.
Good questions.
I have a few questions. One is, I think Viv asked for staking of the edge of work here. I'm just wondering, what's shown is the edge of the, I think it's temporarily modified areas here near the river. Is that like the toe of the current bank off the road, or is that moving north from where it is now? Should we interpret this as the existing, well, there's grade shown here. Do we interpret this as the existing grade?
So we're moving the hinge point of the slope
That's at the top, right?
at the top
Yeah.
out just a little bit to get this full 5-foot width of sidewalk, and I believe a guardrail or something behind it, right?
Correct.
So we're doing a very little, we're just widening a couple of feet, really.
But is the whole thing moving?
It's
The
mo- it
whole
moves the whole
slope is
s-
moving?
Yeah.
I believe it'll tie in roughly at the same toe slope today. I'll have to look at the cross sections to see the proposed grading down, but I believe it's fairly close to that.
Existing
That
toe.
existing toe, yeah.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so also, you're showing these areas as only subject to temporary modification. There are currently some pretty mature cedars there in the northeast corner anyway, there, right in there. But in your planting list, you only have, what is it, sumac and, what's the other one? Some other shrub?
Service-
Chokeberry.
Chokecherry. So,
Would you like cedars, Ed?
well, my first question is, why are you saying no permanent modifications when you're taking trees out that you're not proposing to replace?
We'd be more than happy to replace them. I think that,
Well, I think, I mean,
Just an
Amy
oversight.
mentioned
Yeah, I would
woody
recommend,
plants.
I'd recommend, like for like as much as possible,
we
but
can go 2 to 1 if you want. We do
we
that,
can,
as-
yeah, so I,
really, whatever
I'd
the
like to
commission
see,
desires
the
up there.
plan.
that's-
Yeah,
or at least a spec on the plan that we can share with them.
sure, we can update that.
But
Yeah, yep.
use similar species if you want, and personally to me, if you want to add in a couple of red chokeberry and
Did you
and the
anticipate
sumac,
those trees
you
coming
can, but
Are they showing us coming out?
I think the disconnect is that it's shown as tree line and not as individual trees.
Oh, I
So
see,
we
yeah,
just
yeah.
have it as part of the clearing and
Right.
operation and not an individual tree to be removed.
I mean, if, they're pretty much on the slope, so if you're really just kicking the top back,
Yeah, we might
you
be able
may
to
be
save
able
them.
to save some, so I think, should this go forward, that you save what you can.
Yeah.
And we would talk about it in the field prior.
Yeah,
Right, it'd be better to save those trees.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. And
But
that
we
may
can
be
plan-
possible.
And we can plan to include in the contract replacement.
Yeah.
Right, in either case.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I just have a couple other things. One is, sounds to me like the whole project from the Herring River to Dennis is 32 feet wide. Do I have that right? It's like 22 feet of roadway and 10 feet of sidewalk?
And, yeah, 22 plus 5-foot shoulders, so 32 to
On the
the
road.
curb
Curb
line.
to curb, yeah.
And then
Oh, oh.
another 10 feet for the sidewalks, or
Oh, so
10 and
it's
a half
40.
feet, really.
And what is the
11
current,
feet, I mean.
what is the current width now, at least in this section close to the bridge?
It's very similar, well, close to the bridge,
It's wider, it's
it's
probably,
wider than that.
it probably is 34 feet at the bridge approach, the existing curb to curb of the road.
So we're gonna
So
match
we're
that.
matching that.
We just match into it, but
Ah, I see.
as we get away from the bridge going west, it
Come down.
tapers down a little bit.
And so you're adding bike lanes here, which is great, but what about the other side of the bridge? I mean, it's great to have those bike lanes, but one
Yeah.
would think you would want to continue them all the way into Harwichport and,
We're trying to get all the way to P-Town, but we gotta take it in.
so are there plans?
Yeah, I think the department, especially District 5 and Taunton, has a vision for what they'd like to see on 28 that we've been trying to implement. And we're doing that, yeah, and it's context sensitive. So what's going on here in this section of Harwich, which is sort of a historic section, is more or less in keeping with what's out there today. We're not adding a full bike path on one side of the roadway, whereas in Yarmouth, we are.
And West Dennis.
And
We
West
are.
Dennis, yeah.
Route 28 West Dennis has a shared use path, so.
Right.
Yep.
But the section of Dennis going into Dennisport that I referred to at the beginning does not. It's more or less what this project has with the 5-foot shoulders and the 5-foot sidewalks. But it does provide some accommodation for bikes. Not off the roadway, but it's still, you know, it's a balance between the context that the roadway is passing through and the number of bikes and so on. With all the motels in Yarmouth, there's a lot of bicycles, especially in the summertime.
Hopefully there are more
Yeah,
when you get into Harwich as well.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, that's all I had. Do we have questions or comments in the room?
Mr. Chair, somebody asked what the impetus of this project was, and it was entirely that Dennisport was looking good and West Harwich not so much. And one thing that was overlooked in the whole conversation was the failure of that intersection. In fact, when Dennis did their project, they avoided dealing with both of those signaled intersections because of the complicated nature of them. This project is a joint project with the town of Dennis and will address those signals, which if you've ever been in there from anywhere from June to, September, you can wait for 2, 3, 4 light cycles. And that should be completely a thing of the past once this project sees through fruition.
That's a good point. Thank you, Link.
Link, would
Yes,
you
sir.
mind just identifying yourself for the record?
Lynn Cooper, DPW Director.
Thank you.
Started this project back in 16, 15, help me out, guys.
14, 15.
14?
14.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
I think
Yeah, so it has
14.
taken a while, and I'm very enthusiastic to see this actually being constructed.
Right.
thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
Good evening, Patrick Otten, East Harwich. I'm going to strongly encourage you to pay special attention to the bike lanes. They need to be authentic, they need to be real, and they need to be usable. As you know, the Cape Cod Commission has started the program Vision Zero because there are 3 bike accidents. Well, there's a pedestrian bike accident every 3 days. It's on the Cape Cod Commission list to address and to solve. And you can take a first step here to put in good bike lanes.
Yep.
So when we continue to P-Town, which I hope happens, we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
have to redo anything. So,
Okay,
thank you.
good advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? So how should we proceed here? Do we?
So we need a couple of things. I think at least a table on the plan, showing, back up. First, let's see if there's any trees that we think we can save.
Right.
Augment those with a potential planting plan that puts some oaks and cedars back if you can't save them, or augment that. Can still keep a couple of your other, your desired species. And we also do need your notice of intent narrative updated to reflect the coastal bank
Yes.
and its performance standards. And it would be helpful if, at least by the river, up to the Old Irish Pub, if that could be, if
Staked
the
out.
limit of work could be staked out.
Sure.
So I think we'll be looking just for hopefully a short continuance. Our next meeting is April 16th. We would need revised documents a week from today. Is that doable?
Yep, we should be able to update the plan before then.
How about the staking?
Staking, we'll have to think about the timeline. I think on that a little bit is a good point, Link. But staking, we have all the data, we just need to get a crew
Down
to
here.
down here to go up
Yeah.
there, yeah. But,
From Watertown?
yeah, yeah, but it's this, yeah, we should be able to,
So we
sorry.
wouldn't need it staked until probably not this coming weekend, but the weekend after.
okay.
Just a few days prior to the meeting,
About
so the
10 days from
commission
now.
can see it.
2 days
Yeah.
later. Yep,
So it gives you a few extra days to do it.
sure. So yeah, if they're in the ground by Friday, the 11th, that
It
would
would-
be plenty
yeah.
of time.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Commission, you'd like to see the toe, basically the limit of work, but it probably would be helpful at the top of the slope area to see where the edge of hardscape's gonna be.
Okay.
Would you like that for both the north and the south side
That'd be great.
of the road?
Awesome.
So edge, back, will say back of sidewalk and
North and
limit of
south.
work,
Yes.
yeah. And the office side plan documents, you said by within a week of today?
Yes.
Sure.
Next Wednesday, end of day, please.
We can do that.
And you don't have to, do whole new big packets, you could just do that sheet.
Okay.
And same thing, if there's like just a sheet in the notice of intent or the package that you have to give, we can insert it.
Okay.
Okay?
You guys are in regular communication anyway, aren't you?
Yes.
Steve?
We have each other's emails.
Yep.
Yeah, good, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
thanks for having us down.
thank you. We need a motion to continue.
I'll make a motion, we continue the project. Let's see, Route 28 map, NA, I guess that parcel NA. Route 28 project down in West Harwich,
April 16th.
and to April 16th.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
5-0, thank you.
Fantastic,
See you
thank
in
you
2
very much.
weeks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have a notice of intent for 397 Route 28, map 13, parcel D1-0 for parking lot improvements and mitigation plantings. Good evening.
Chair,
Good evening.
members of the commission, you both as well. My name's Jeff Handler, and I'm here with my father-in-law, Jeff Lang, otherwise known as Big J and Little J, and we'll answer to any of that. We are here to discuss the 397 Main Street property. And if I may just give a brief history on the property so everybody on the commission and the public understands how we got here. This definitely won't take too long. Back in 1931, my grandfather took up residence at the property and opened a metals recycling business. In the mid-30s to early 40s, it turned into a automotive recycling business, lovingly known as a junkyard. And from that point all the way until approximately 1978, my grandfather lived on that property. The house was moved up the street to Handler Way, and it was simply then, at that time, and going forward to 2015, automotive recycling center or a junkyard. In 2015, the business closed. My father and my 2 aunts retired, and for several years, the property sat dormant, vacant. The building was falling down. It was a bit of an eyesore. Parts of the building ended up in Route 28. There were several buyers, potential buyers interested in the property through the years, one of them being the town of Harwich, but that never ended up coming to fruition for whatever reason. And then my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my wife and I started to formulate a plan. There might be a way to do 2 things. Number 1, keep it in the family, because for me that means a lot. And number 2, I believe a big reason why this property never traded was because it was a brownfield. And many people, many of the buyers really didn't want to take the risk of assuming the cost to clean up such a property, which we could understand. However, we decided that it would be in our best interest to do so. And I believe it was like 2020, we began the process of cleaning the property up. And thank you to the Conservation Commission and everybody else who made that that project go as smoothly as it did. I think we completed the project in about 14 months, roughly, with some testing happening after that to make sure the property stayed clean, which I'm happy to say it has. So since it was cleaned, there's been multiple people who have come before us and asked us to either partner or sell the property. And at this point, we really don't know what we want to do with the property. We drive by it on a daily basis, and we see cars parked there routinely. We have artists out there painting across the way in the marsh and the harbor, and it's a pretty wonderful thing to see people enjoying a nice big parcel that has been in my family for that long. And more importantly, a clean parcel that has been in my family for that long and continues to be. So we are here tonight to begin the first step in activating that property. Because whatever we choose to do down the road, it's going to require parking. And the big slab that's there right now is, in my opinion, it's an unsafe piece of concrete for the amount of people who park there and walk their dogs there and use the property for whatever they want to use it for. So in short, that's the history of the property. And we are here today, as you well know, and we're going to put up, that's Mr. Crispin, Dave Crispin from the BSC Group. He's our resident expert, and I'm going to let him take over from here and walk you through the slide deck and give you some more information and then answer your questions.
Okay.
Dave, you're going to have to unmute, please.
Let's try that.
Okay.
Much better. Good evening. Deja vu from 2020 on this. Just to make sure everybody knows where we are, we're a little bit to the north of Allen's Harbor here. I think pretty much Jeff described it pretty well. Everybody knows where Handler's Auto Yard was. Next slide.
No, he's got it.
There we go. When we look at the wetlands protection regulations, we need to look back a little bit here, because this site, if you don't recall, when we were here in 2020, was a gravel surface lot, pretty much down to the wetlands all the way around. And this 2012 picture tells a very good picture of it, of what it was like. Pretty much a silty gravel surface covered with automobiles. Next slide, please. This slide actually was the one that we showed you 5 years ago in 2020. And for general information, the lighter green area is the activity and use limitation, and that's where the most concentrated area of contaminated soils went. It's all buried under 3 feet of clean soil, and that's what they call isolated, and it's allowed to stay there. That's all completed with Mass DEP under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. The light tan ribbon around the property has been in the concept since this 2020 plan was put together. And that's kind of a foot trail that was planned to go around the bottom of the site. And again, this site, this picture from 2020, the Google Earth picture here, shows a bare soil, barren area. Of course, we've colored in the coastal bank and what that was cleaned up and remediated at that time. But underneath that, it was all brown, bare soil. And that's important for the riverfront discussion we're going to have in a minute. Next slide, please. In fact, this is what Google Earth shows today. And I probably don't need to explain this to you because you drive by it and see it's all green. Jeff's exactly right. It's a gorgeous site looking out over the salt marsh. Next slide, please. So we have a couple of things going on here. There's a coastal bank out there, and we are near the coastal bank, but we're not working on the coastal bank. So no work proposed on the coastal bank. Land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is set at elevation 11. We have about a half an acre of work in there and about 1,100 cubic yards of fill. And why do we need this fill? Well, when you design a parking lot, you like to keep the slope at no steeper than 4%. 4% is the point where a car door starts opening by itself and slamming into the car next to it. So that's the rationale of why we're kind of leveling this lower portion of the site. And the riverfront, which covers some of the site, actually gives you some exemptions, to put it in the short term, if it's a previous junkyard. Well, Jeff started this discussion off telling you what it was. It's very rarely when you have a one-for-one match from the regulations to what it really was. So those are the three resource areas we're dealing with, and we'll just walk you through this in a minute. Next slide. The land subject to coastal storm flowage. The yellow line is the upper limit of the floodplain, and the red line is the lower limit of where the fill is going. So we're all filling down in this corner. And I will comment that there is no performance standards for land subject to storm flowage. You can't flood the ocean, is the short story on that. So this is an allowable use. Next slide. The storm drainage system, actually fairly simple. It's a series of catch basins, and they all go into these subsurface chambers, of which a typical example is in the upper right of this slide. They're called it's like a Quonset hut, but it's a storm chamber packed in crushed stone. And part of the reason why we don't bring a lot of fill onto this site is because we're going to dig a big hole to put that in. So it helps balance the site. And from a storm drainage perspective, if you look in the bottom left there, you will see the 2-year storm, there's less flow, minus 3.2 CFS. The 10-year storm, minus 5 CFS. The 25-year storm, minus 7 CFS, and the 100-year storm, that's kind of hard to read, but I think it's a negative number.
Minus 9.33.
Thank you. My screen's a little small. But the answer is that this thing is sized to reduce the runoff from the entire site for all storms, and put it into the ground and comply with the BMPs from a total suspended solids method. So we can comply with all of that. Next slide, please. This is the planting plan. And I know there was a request to close out the current order of conditions on the site, which had the plantings along the lower bank portion. That was not completed, basically due to COVID and lack of supply. Jeff, I think you said it's scheduled to be done immediately, but I decided to show them all on the same plan so we saw the big picture. Other than that, there's a series of trees going in the parking lot. There's a series of North Atlantic cedars going along the roadway to try and dress this up. Next slide. This is the, which one is this? I guess this is just the big picture. The lower right red circle, boomerang-shaped thing, is the rain garden that's proposed to take the lower portion of the site. All of the parking lot goes into that storm drainage I just talked about, along with perhaps a future building up in the green area to the left. That rain garden is in the current location of the one that we built during construction, and it was really just a temporary one, but it's in the same location. It needs to be dressed up and reformed and reset, clarified. The footpath, which is the light tan line going around, is the foot trail that we had before. It's been modified somewhat to go from parking lot to parking lot instead of from the street, but obviously you still could walk down the driveway and go around the walkway and go around the whole thing. And if you've been out on the site, that walkway is in the terrace that's about halfway up that bank. And that terrace is purposely designed to be above the 100-year floodplain. So that's kind of where that is. Next slide.
That's it, Dave.
That's the last one. Okay, so we're at the question point. That's a very brief overview. And I know Amy had a few questions this morning, which, Amy, do you want to chat about those, or what's your pleasure?
Amy?
Sure, we can chat about them. But first, let's just say we did get a DEP number today for you. In the
Yes,
letter
I saw
from,
that, yep.
in the letter from DEP, they had a couple of comments. So I would trust that you're gonna get back to them about their comments, and I can just read them quickly for you. Is there currently an absence of topsoil on the lot? Per the Rivers Act, if the lot is not currently degraded, then 10.584 would apply. Instead, to me, this lot was degraded prior to 1996, when the Rivers Act went into place, and was degraded up until recently, when you did the remediation. So I think you're correct in interpreting it the way you have, according to the Rivers Act regulations. But I bring it up because they're questioning it, and ultimately, they kind of need to be okay with it too. She wants you to confirm that the restoration of the riverfront area on the property is 1-to-1. You've done, according to what you've shown, way more than that, so provide them a copy with what you provided us today would be good. And
That's an easy way.
yep, that was easy. And then just comments to the person who wrote this, which is Jacqueline Sidman over at DEP. So, going through the questions, now that I can appreciate why you put the existing approved planting plan in with this approved planting plan, but when I was reviewing it, I got a little confused. So, but it is clearer now. It is a busy plan. There's a lot going on here. So, let's see, let's go through the questions real quick.
Amy, just a quick question. Is that DMF letter in Dropbox right now?
It's not DMF.
Oh,
It's, when we get a
do you mean?
notification of a DEP number,
DEP.
usually it just has a number on it, but sometimes they add comments, so no, because I just got this
Okay, all right.
today. But I'll trust that you'll address that with them.
Yep, that makes two of us. We both just got it today.
Yep. So, just want to be clear, it is your intention to do the plantings that were part of that old filing this spring?
That's correct.
Okay, that's good. That's one, and that's what we talked about, you doing. You quantified your disturbance to the areas, which I requested that you do, so thank you, and you put a table together, which was on your tables today, of your mitigation. You're doing additional grading, and just made the comment that we typically don't allow fertilizers and soil amendments, so that's probably a boilerplate condition that you put on plans for your planting notes, but it should be removed. Let's see. Other than that, I think, so only just for the commission, as you're looking at the plan, only the planting, the walkway, and a small portion of the asphalt parking lot is within your jurisdiction. The vast majority of the parking lot, any proposed new anything in the northwest corner, that's not jurisdictional to us. So you're really just looking coastal bank area and part of the parking lot. You approved the main garden basin last time, I believe. And stormwater,
In a construction mode, yes.
right, in a construction mode.
Yep.
Most of my questions, because it is a degraded site that's pretty bare right now, you're almost starting from a blank slate, which is nice. I just do question the stone dust walking path. It's 6 feet in the 50-foot no disturb zone. I do understand that 5 years ago, the whole site was disturbed. However, stone dust is hardening. I would encourage you to see if you could get it closer, if not outside of the 50-foot no disturb zone, if possible, on the site. Our bylaw does say no new structures, and this could be interpreted as well, actually, it's a no disturb zone. It says there should be no disturbance. So that's a discussion for the Conservation Commission to have. And I'll leave it at that for now.
I know that walkway was put in originally from the very early times at a request from the town to provide that kind of access. The surface being a stone dust surface is to try and comply with an ADA standard, so this becomes inaccessible down to the marsh. The storm drainage calculations are included in that. It's designed to be that way, and the fact that it's all less than 5%, I think, provides a fairly erosion-resistant surface. So there was thought to that.
Okay,
Yep,
we're
I
gonna have,
understand that.
we're gonna have questions and comments from the commission now, starting with Wayne.
I don't have really any questions. I just wanted to make a comment. I think this property looks a heck of a lot better than it did when your grandfather Louis had it, that's for sure.
Unfortunately, I agree.
I remember in high school, that was a great source of used car parts for all us kids. But other than that, I think it's, whatever you're doing there is gonna be great, so I'm happy with it. And I'm sure, I know there's some technical stuff that's gotta be dealt with, but overall, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, Vivian?
No, the only question I had highlighted the 6-foot stone dust walking path on the plan, and I don't know if you said that the town had originally requested that be put in? Can you say a little bit more about that, or talk a little bit more about why the path is in there, or why it's in the plan?
Jeff, do you want to comment on that? I mean, the direction really came from you in your early discussions on this
It did.
remediation work.
I do not believe that we are mandated to have this walking path. It is something we wanted to provide, so that if you have gone out to the site, you'll see how it sits on that lower shelf.
Yeah.
It provides for such a beautiful view, and it's a safer way of getting around the property than trying to walk through a parking lot or another way that people might find their way to the green space. But as I said, I don't believe it's mandated. We could leave it as it is, but it would prevent some people from using that walkway. Right now, it's grass, and it works just fine, but we wanted to clean it up a little bit, make it more ADA compliant. So
There are a lot of people using it right now.
there's more people using it than I ever thought would be using it right now. I mean, I found golf balls on the property, so people are out there playing golf. It's just fine with me. I don't mind that. Like I said, there's artists who park there and they walk down to that little spot where the toe is on that lower west side. And they put up their easels and they paint, and dog walkers all day long. People just sit there and eat lunch. So it's been pretty interesting for me to watch the change of usage from what we saw on the slide up there, where we had a nice automobile fence line all the way around the coastal bank, to now we have people using the property for whatever they want and what makes them happy. So I don't think it's a mandated walkway.
I believe that it had to do with the extent of the Junkyard Brown site included that walkway. And so we were looking at being able to preserve access to that, even though the regs had changed since they started parking cars there, about in making the 50-foot no touch. And with grading it and making it as a walkway relative to developing the thing into condominiums that no one from 28 would ever see the ocean again, in Harwich Port, that was that's sort of the horse trading going on, wow, this whole thing was really developed right to the water line. And actually, we were pulling cars and parts out of the water in order to clear and rebuild the site. So it was kind of one of those trade points on, wow, let us keep something for the public access that is a little bit bending your rule on the 50-foot while we're cleaning this all back up out of the water.
And that's a really good point. And it was a long time ago, so I had forgotten that part of it. And it did actually happen organically, where we created the coastal bank, and then we had to come up again for that activity use limit area. And then we saw this this beautiful walkway that just kind of occurred. So if I remember right now, that's kind of how that all began. Yeah. Sure.
And that plan was shown on the order of conditions in 2020, so that walkway has been in there for a while. It's nothing new.
Shows as a flat area, I don't know if it shows on that. It's a walkway.
All set, Viv?
Yes, thank you.
It's a good-looking plan.
Thank you.
The walkway in question, if it's, in my opinion, if it's within the no disturb zone, it should be left. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I think the plan looks great. It's a really nice plant list. The path doesn't bother me. In fact, I think with like this type of planting where you have a lot of plugs and you have a lot of these native grassy areas, you're kind of guiding people to walk in a specific area and not maybe meander around and step on plants and, you know, get close to the more sensitive areas. So I think it's a nice feature and, like you said, it's sort of an inclusive feature as well. And I do think it's good to corral folks out of sensitive areas. So, nothing else for me.
Thank you.
So, what's unclear to me about the plan right now is the mitigation numbers and what that looks like on the plan. I was looking at what is it here? The memo, is it, from dated today, which gives the mitigation numbers, the disturbance numbers. I have a couple questions about that. Just for example, in this table, which is on the second page, which has hardscape and riverfront, hardscape and land subject to coastal storm flowage, and hardscape and coastal bank buffer. It shows 300 square feet of the foot trail, and then it shows somewhere here 4,300 of mitigation required for the foot trail. The numbers don't quite add up to me, and is that 300 in the coastal bank buffer? Is that also in the riverfront, and so it doesn't end up getting added into the total mitigation for that?
Thank you for
Well,
the
you
question.
don't have, I don't think you have a mitigation number for riverfront, but you do have for the other ones, and there are different ratios at 2 to 1 and 3 to 1, so I divided them up to that. Came up with a 6,600 square foot mitigation area, and we're providing 27,000, which is a 400% above that with plantings and green space.
Okay, so that's the other part that is unclear to me, is that number, 20,000, whatever it is, square feet. That includes what looks to me like a lot of what is already planted in grass. And my question is, are you counting what is now basically lawn as part of the mitigation? And,
Yes, I would say we are, because this is essentially the same project.
well, I don't know that we ever
They're
approved.
two separate filings. The other filing is still open, and this is a continuation of what we started 5 years ago.
Well, this is a question for Amy. When we approved whatever mitigation it was in 2020, did we include any of the area that is now simply planted in grass
Yes.
as part of the mitigation?
Not as, so the area that you currently see, that, some of the area that's currently grass is slated to be mitigation under the previous application. And I should say, I would hesitate to call that mitigation because, as much as it was restoration, because you took out all the bad stuff, and it was an agreed upon restoration plan that they are to fulfill. But I guess, are you asking what they are doing above and beyond that for the new hardscape?
Well, I mean, I don't really care so much about whether all of that 27,000 is something that we would consider to be actual mitigation. What I'm more curious about is whether the stated requirement here of, what is the number, 6,625? What constitutes that 6,625 square feet? Is that all new native plantings, or is some of what is now, I would loosely call it lawn area, included in that 6,625 square feet of mitigation?
I guess I'm confused. Are you
Yeah.
say,
Well, what-
lawn is, I don't
I
think
mean, that
anywhere
whole
is shown
site
as
except-
mitigation.
That whole site, except the pre-existing parking lot and slab,
Yep,
is now planted in native grass.
yeah.
And I'm just trying to determine whether any of that area planted in native grass currently is being included in this 6,000 some odd square feet of mitigation, or whether that entire number, 6,625 square feet, is new native plantings shown on this plan.
I'll let Mr. Crispin.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to address that, but at this point, my understanding was we could count all of that, everything over the activity and the use limitation area and the new embankments and all the slopes. But I will divide that. At this point, I think we have 400% of what we need. I think we can show that we will match the percentages required
Yeah.
for the new area and exclude the area that was permitted under the previous thing. And I can tabulate that and get that back.
I think what might be easier visually too, Dave, is if you could almost take that old plan and show in one color the shaded area of the previous restoration, and show in another color on the plan the area of your new proposed mitigation planting. And when, it took me a minute when I was looking at it the other day with Lily, is it's almost like two tiers. You know, you have the area that you did before, and then above and beyond that, literally above it, you're doing additional restoration.
Yeah. Let me ask one question. Mitigation area or plants? Because when we did this 5 years ago, my memory was the mitigation was really the plants. It wasn't calculated to an area. Does the commission like to see an area or count plants?
Well, that's.
Both, but, so say if you had 100 square feet of new pavement, which I know you have more, but just using that number, then depending on what resource or what buffer zone it's in, you multiply that by whatever ratio we have. And say, for instance, you're doing a shrub habitat, it's the, you know, the spacing of the shrubs essentially that you use to come up with the square footage, or to come up with the mitigation number.
All right, so it's an area calculation.
It's an area.
That has a number of plants in it, but it's an
Correct.
area calculation. Okay.
You said it better than
gotcha.
I did, yes.
Yes, and you.
I can provide that.
You're stating an area here, a required area.
Yep.
We'd like to see what that area actually is on the plan.
I think it's just a little
It's-
difficult with this plan's got a lot going on, so.
Right,
Kind of.
there's really three tiers.
Mhm.
The top tier is what you have identified in red on one of those slides as your 27,000 square feet, but I don't think that's what we're really interested in. We're interested in the area from the 2020 plan, what that is, and the area from
Yep.
what you're proposing here that is actual native planting mitigation.
When I look at
I can
the
eat-
chart, a significant portion is the footwalk, or the walkway. So if the walkway has to be left as is and could not be made to be ADA compatible, does that mean we don't have to do that extra 4,300 square feet of mitigation?
It could technically mean that.
So,
I would,
but as planned,
yeah.
we'll show the 6,300 square feet of mitigation.
I agree that the path is a nice feature, and I think you heard some commissioners liking the path as well. One thing you should, if you intend to keep the path and pursue that, is technically request a variance. So I don't think that was requested in the narrative. So provided that you are above and beyond your mitigation requirements, I think there could be an argument that you're improving the area substantially enough to warrant something such that.
Okay.
We'll do some calculations,
Yep.
see where we land, and then see how we're gonna remedy.
Yeah.
Okay, there may be some people in the room who might have something to say. I see someone's hand up in the back.
Hi, my name is Jen Raphael. We live very close to the area in question in the townhouses there. And I was very curious about your saying how many people use that area. I frankly have never seen anybody use that area. I don't recall ever seeing cars there. I didn't even know there was a walking path, quite frankly. But your other comment was on on people using that as sort of a place to hit golf balls. And that kind of threw me because this seems like a very sensitive area, and with the wetlands there, nesting birds, and it seems hardly a place to have someone putting golf balls into that area. And so your comment of, well, people can go there and do whatever they want, I think there should be some recognition and some acknowledgement. It is a sensitive area, and so I think there should be some restrictions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Doesn't seem that way. Anyone online? Okay, well, it seems we have a few details to attend to, so we need to have a continuance.
Yes, so your choices are April 16th or May 7th, the week of town meeting.
I know what I'll be doing right after town meeting, and it won't be being here, so,
Well, I'm hoping it only goes 2 nights,
Yeah.
because if it goes 3, then
well,
it
that's,
messes us up too.
David, can we get the calculations done prior, you would need them in a
A
week?
week from today, yeah.
Can we get those calculations?
I believe we can do that.
Plan, just a different color
Sure.
shading or something, just to make it clear. And just a revised narrative asking for your variance request if you choose to do that for the path.
Just for the record, that I went back and looked at the 2020 plan, and that pathway was shown on there, so I'm not sure it wasn't permitted back then, but it didn't clarify stone dust, so I guess we'll ask for the variance.
Yeah, it's technically hardening would be considered different than grass in our view, so,
Or we may leave it as is.
yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
we
your
can have that
decision, but-
discussion.
All right, so the 16th.
Please.
Okay,
I'll make a motion, we continue the project for 397 Route 28, map 13, parcel D1-0 to the May 16th
April.
meeting.
April.
Oh, excuse me, April. I'm ahead of things here.
Second.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
5
you.
and 0.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a request for determination of applicability for, excuse me, 13 Walther Road, map 16, parcel S6-5 for pond deregulation. Good evening. Amy.
Hi, good evening. Stephanie Sequin with Ryder and Wilcox and Jerry Cushing, who is the owner of property at 17 Neal Road. There's an existing dwelling there. Directly behind that property is 13 Walter Road, which is what we're here to discuss. 13 Walter Road is a vacant property. It's actually part of the adjoining property at, I think it's 17 Walter Road. But on this vacant lot, there is a man-made pond with a little bordering, a little wetland vegetation around it. And because that feature is within 100 feet of 17 Neal Road, we've filed an RDA to determine whether or not that qualifies as a resource area under your local wetlands bylaw. Back in 2017, there was, Ryder and Wilcox filed an RDA, a similar RDA on behalf of the previous owner for that same reason. And at that time, we flagged the wetland. We did hand borings to look at the soils to see whether or not there were hydric soils. Turned out the area of the pond and adjacent wetland vegetation was less than 3,000 square feet and therefore did not meet the standard under your bylaw as being a regulated resource area. That determination has since expired, so on behalf of Jerry and his wife, Martha, we have filed a new RDA, basically the same procedure that we did previously. Jerry hired a consultant from LSC Environmental Consulting. They went out and flagged the edge of the wetland vegetation. I think there were 14 flags that were put out there. Ryder and Wilcox located those flags, put them onto an existing conditions plan that was filed with the RDA, and determined the square footage of the pond and surrounding wetland vegetation is 2,895 square feet. So again, under the 3,000 square foot threshold that you have under your local bylaw. So I think we've given you, there was a report that LSC prepared with their findings that was included in the RDA. So we're hoping that you will, again, find a negative determination of applicability here. Thank you.
Amy?
I went out and rechecked the flagging out there and looked at all your materials. I do agree, the wetland hasn't changed. It's a man-made wetland, but it doesn't meet our jurisdictional criteria of being 3,000 square feet or above. As you're not proposing to do anything to the actual wet area itself, that I'd probably scrutinize a little bit more, but you're proposing, I'm assuming, to do something you want to potentially do on your property, and just if this is determined to be non-jurisdictional, then it just means he doesn't have to go through the Conservation Commission in order to get permitted for what he wants to do on his property. So I would recommend that you issue a negative determination which would confirm the wetland delineation, and that this wetland at this time is not, for the life of this, is not jurisdictional.
Okay, thank you. Sophia?
I can't think of any questions.
I agree with Amy.
No questions, pretty
I
straightforward.
agree with Amy also.
So just one question for you. What, are you recommending exactly just a negative or -3 or how, what is
I
the?
don't remember what number it is off the top of my head, to be honest, but if you say, if you could word it, you could confirm the wetland delineation, issue a negative determination that this is non-jurisdictional, and we will find what number it actually is when we do the paperwork, if you're okay with that.
Oh, were you asking me? Yeah, I was looking, I thought I had the old application. I don't.
No, I don't either, on the
Yeah.
top, right here, so
I think there was actually some language added to clarify what exactly the decision was about, that it deregulated the. area.
You're saying,
Issue a negative determination that this wetland is non-jurisdictional.
okay, so moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all very
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank you.
I don't think you've done the place.
I can't take any credit, it's Jamie over at the Harwich channel. Yes. Hold it for now, I already passed it.
So now we have a request for an amended order of conditions for 25 Davis Lane, map 8, parcel N5-1, SE 32-2539.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Green cards?
I'll take them. Thank you.
I am Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering, working with Kevin Simard and his wife Linda, who are residents at 25 Davis Lane. The house is almost completed, and we're before you for a proposed beach access stair that goes down the coastal bank. It's an appurtenant easement. It's effectively an extension of the property. And in looking at your regulations, that's really do go to a nice length to specify how these things should be done. We once had a concept of switchbacks and landings, and instead, after reading the regs, we've got pretty much a straight shot, 4 feet wide, maintaining separation off the bank. And I think uniquely for this location is a lot of scrub trees that are in this area that are over-pruned, and this application is not intending to clear this bank, but there are 9 flagged trees that will, from my estimation, allow much more light to get to the ground on this coastal bank in the area of where the stair is proposed, and several trees off to the west. And to get the program started for stabilizing the bank, especially in the area of the stairway, what we've noted is that northern bayberry is really prolific at the very bottom of the bank. And so I see no reason not to encourage more of that to grow on the bank. And the loss of those 9 trees, which will leave, I think it's fair to say, scores of scrubs still in the vicinity, but it will give the bank the shrub layer that it needs. If you've been there, you can see that the leaf canopy of these overly pruned trees basically created a glade effect, and the shrubs and an overseeding in that area with improved light will help the bank. I think in the future, you will see a formalized notice of intent by the applicant, not now, but in the future, to address the comprehensive bank. But since the stairway is being proposed where it is, and that's going to affect some of that vegetation, we decided to expand the mitigation, which effectively is a nice replacement. I don't know who did this work, but many, many years prior to the Simard owning it, those trees were they just were cut. It was a view easement, and the Simards know that dealing with that is something that they need to engage with you on. So the stairway is the primary part of this application, but it's coupled with an effort to stabilize that eastern side of the bank and to get these bayberries growing in there. I think it's a good thing to do. And all the stairway work would be done by hand. They've already contacted somebody that I work with quite a bit who does a really good job on these things. They're direct bury posts, just hand augered, nice and deep, and then compacted. Open risers, very elegant but simple coastal bank beach access stairway. And Amy, you reached out today about rights, and we sent you the
Yep.
easement. And the easement provided access rights across what was private property but is now the town property. But it's almost interesting to wonder if every member of the public has the same easement. But at least that is specified in that deed that the town got from Merkel, that there's rights of access to the beach by the owner of Lot 1. And that isn't where the stairway's located, but it's a little bit south of there. So if you go down the stairs and you're going to the beach, there's a pretty well-established path that I noted last time I was there and on aerial photography. So there's no real issue there, but Kevin can get you some more things if you need it. So, in fact, you've seen a lot of stairways, and so there's nothing really surprising about this one. I think it's a good fit for that portion of the bank, and if we can answer any questions, we'd be happy to try. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, so I don't have so many questions about the stairs themselves as if this was filed appropriately, because the original order of conditions was from 25 Davis Lane.
Right.
Technically, this work, the stairs, is going to occur, I believe, on 18 Snow Inn Road.
That's correct.
So, again, I have no problem with the stairs. I just want to make sure that legally this was advertised correctly, that this was, and that this shouldn't be on its own, like something standalone. And at minimum, I understand that you have an access easement. I have the deed. I had pulled that prior. It's not specific. It says, access, but in terms of building a set of stairs, not on the town property, we know that, on the 18 Snow Inn Road property. So that's why I was being a little nitpicky in my emails about wanting something actually more than a text in writing from them, which hopefully you can get. But in terms of, yeah, this is happening on a property that's not yours, so if you record it as an amendment, it would go on your deed.
I've seen it twice. I would think it would be recorded at 25 Davis Lane because it's in a pertinent easement, and
Okay.
it would be unfair to burden the
I wouldn't want to see
estate-
them be burdened either.
Right, with an order of conditions on their property.
Right, I wouldn't want to see them burdened either, but I guess what I'm saying is, at minimum, I would want something more official in writing from the owners of 18 Snow Inn, signed, that, allude to this plan and this narrative, that they're in agreement with it. That would be helpful on our end, logistically. And then, I do know once you get to the bottom of that slope, if you kind of go along the toe of the slope, you do hitch up with another path a little bit. It doesn't go straight out. I just wouldn't want to see another new, like a new path going through property if it doesn't need to be. If you can hook up with one of what the other neighbors are using. I just want to get away from habitat fragmentation in the dunes there.
We picked the spot where we'd hit a patch of sand,
Yeah,
and we're right there, and then you really can get to that path pretty easily.
yeah.
I'm sure they would not want to bushwhack through. They'd use the path that's there.
And thank you for your time tonight. The 18 Snow Inn Road has a set of stairs
Yes.
that goes down.
Mhm.
And I believe where the stairs, we're
close.
coming very close to the same area.
Yeah.
So the sand would, I think, be the same path over to the pathway that the
Okay.
public uses to go along Witchmere Harbor down to Merkle Beach.
Yeah.
So I don't think there would be, I know there wouldn't be an additional,
That's something that we could condition as well. Like, we understand that you do technically have access over 18 Snow Inn as well as the Merkle Beach property per your deed. But I would have, as there are existing created ways there, I wouldn't want to see additional ones. And then as far as the tree cutting, I think what I would suggest for now, considering you may be looking at a whole bank plan in the future, is really only to remove the trees that are really kind of necessary and might be either overhanging or impact the staircase at this time. So the numbered trees on your plan that I had thought that I could see being removed are 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I would like to see, for now, the other ones remain until we have a more comprehensive plan. I do question, I do know that there's a lot of bayberry on the toe of the slope here. It's a really pretty steep slope. I'm just wondering on the slope itself, how they would do. Normally I see bayberries not on steep embankments, so if you'd be amenable to another potential species or two,
What do you
I think we
think
can work
that's
with you.
about dryness? I've seen them over on the north side. We've got, of course, they're terrific coastal banks. I've seen a lot of bayberry growing on the slope. I just saw that it was so wonderfully healthy and prolific as it was.
Yeah.
This is, south wind, salt,
Oh, it's
a
in the
lot of sun.
dunes. It's in the dunes. I'm just
Yeah.
curious about a steep embankment like that.
There are others, and we can certainly find other shrubs if you think there are things that you think would be better on the slope.
Yeah.
And there won't be as much room for them, but along each side of that stairway,
Right.
absolutely shrubbery to
Shrubberies and
stabilize the ground.
Grasses.
And better, it would be grasses. But we'll look into that. I'll
Yeah.
talk with you
And
about
I would
it.
defer to maybe somebody else on the commission who has a,
I know some people in the business on your commission.
in terms of what would be appropriate on more of a steeper embankment. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe bayberry would do fantastic on a steep embankment.
So if you have ideas, feel free. As, I
Don't mean to put you on the spot, but I
No.
did a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe on the steepest part of it, something that suckers a little bit more, like maybe one of the Carolina roses or Virginiana, that might do really nicely, since they tend to colonize and spread, but.
It's a good idea.
Mm-hmm,
Sure.
okay.
We'll diversify
Great.
and get you a little more detail on that.
Yeah, it's not too much, but I would say let's 4, 5, 6, and 7, but the other, 1 through 3, and I think number 9, I'd like to
Yeah,
leave off for
These
now.
were the big ones. We
Yeah.
were trying to get out the shade. There's a lot of others. And
Right.
so there will be very small scrubs right in the
Yeah.
zone.
Okay,
And that's
that's
where,
up to the commission, that's just
well, that's where
to
the
get you
grasses.
access.
That's where the grasses, and the purpose of the shrubs was just to dot it in with
Mhm.
shrubs, but then a broad cast of, I'm a fan of the various conservation mixes that New England Wetland Plants has, but you can't guarantee you're gonna get great germination.
Right,
And so it wouldn't even be wrong to plant beach grass there, but we're not gonna make that window. So we get into the effort to overseed with warm season grasses, which could succeed. And if they did, you'd be doing really well. It is only one narrow
Right.
strip, and it can be managed with
Mhm.
a hose periodically. So
Mhm.
I know the applicant will want to do that.
okay.
Okay. Wayne?
I don't have anything. I'm pretty much in agreement with what Amy's been saying, so.
Okay.
No questions?
Nothing to add?
Nothing to add.
Yeah. I still have two questions about this. One is, I didn't before, and I still don't really understand how this even qualifies as a modification to an order of conditions. It's completely new and different work.
You
from what
can,
we approved on the property previously. Same question.
typically the way, if you're doing if you're doing work on the same property, I mean, it's not associated with the house so much, but if you're doing work on the same property, for housekeeping purposes, it's nice to keep the whole file together under the same. And the process, they still have to notify abutters, they still have to come to a public hearing. The process is essentially the same as a brand-new notice of intent, it's just a little simpler, but generally the process is the same. So, I mean, if they were asking for a water-dependent structure like a dock or something, I would say, no, that's completely separate, but a staircase, I would say that this is, it's up to the commission. You could see it a different way, but the process is essentially the same.
The result is the same
The
in the
result
sense that you.
should be the same, but yeah.
It's an interesting question, but I see your point, and I would have done either way, but I
understand.
think there's a certain amount of elegance to the single permit.
Certainly makes our job easier.
Okay, that's fine. That part is fine with me. So my other point, the other sticky wicket or whatever for me is the business. I'm looking at the deed, and the deed talks about, what does it say? A pertinent right to pass and repass over this property. Doesn't say anything about building structures on the property. So that just emphasizes what Amy is already saying, which is you really need something more than just this deed.
I think it's fair for you to ask for that. I know that if you have rights to pass, many times you have the rights to make improvements so that you can pass or not damage the property. But I think it's very fine, just fine, to have the applicant try to accommodate that.
We've been, my wife, I should say, has been in contact with the owner of 18 Snowing Road. And we haven't even moved to the house yet. We've only owned the property for 2 years, but they've become friendly. There's some text changes we share with Amy, but we understand we'll get a formal, we'll talk to you about exactly what we need. We'll speak to them. They have a disabled child, so she's focused on that. But we will get something as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Is that within 2 weeks?
No, we should be able to hopefully get it within a week.
When's
but-
your next meeting?
The
Not to fill it up,
16th, it's already full to the brim anyways, but the meeting after that is the meeting right after town meeting, and I'm trying to keep it light.
I see. Well, we could settle all the issues here. I mean, I know you're going to get a revised landscape plan. I'll take these
Yeah.
trees off.
Yep,
And I don't think that's a heavy lift.
can put it on, if we can put it on for next week. This
Okay.
hopefully won't take very long at all if we have all the pieces
16th.
together.
Thank you.
Yep, so if possible, next week at this time for any supporting documents. If you need a few extra days to get that letter, let me know.
Yeah, I just want to be sensitive. I want to be sensitive to the O'Briens.
Of course. And, yeah, as long as it's, like a PDF to me, just state, we can go over what it needs to say.
Great, yeah, if we can
Yep,
talk about that, that'd be great.
That's easy. Okay, 16th.
So I'll move that we continue this meeting to April 16th, 2025. This hearing, on the amended order of conditions for 25 Davis Lane.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you in a
Have a good
couple
evening.
weeks.
Thank you.
So next we have an order of conditions for 13 Strandway, map 1, parcel J1-3 for landscape maintenance.
Apologies, these came to you late in the day. They should be on your table. Pretty basic. Basically, this was Mr. Nichols who wants to just prune the rugosa rose back each year, but the new condition about the no fertilizers and pesticides is new for this property. And they agreed to it, so.
Okay. Any comments? Anyone? Anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the order of conditions, 13 Strand Way, SC 32-2593.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay, 401. And we have discussion and possible vote for revisions and edits to the community gardens regulations.
Yes, so this came about because approximately a year ago, we made the community gardens what we call perennial, meaning that, well, before that, I would say 75% of the plots were plots where people had to take their fencing down, take everything out of it every year, and we would till it for them. In the past couple of years, there's been more and more people who wanted to see themselves be able to keep up their fencing, grow perennial crops somewhat, and just not have to take everything up and put it down, or take everything down and put it back up every year. So we had sent out a survey, and the vast majority of the people who responded wanted perennial plots. What this means is we don't till for them anymore, we leave the fences up. They still get water. The rate is the same, it's $40 for each roughly 20 by 20 foot plot, and 15 for every raised bed. But as we go through and we're learning about how to manage the garden that is kind of being managed in a new way, we just wanted to look at the regulations again to, make sure there's language in there about how to keep your plots, when you have to be working your plots, what you can and what you shouldn't be keeping in your plots. It's not to be storage for other purposes. There's been some changes, but actually not too many, actually, when it comes to dates when you have to start gardening by. I think one big question I want to talk to you about tonight is item D, about starting June 1st. Gardeners are expected to have their assigned plots substantially worked and planted. I think the intention here, I think we maybe can word that a little differently, is really just to have, they've been working on their plots. We understand that June 1st is still early in the season, but we want people to have made an effort to planting and improving and cleaning up their plots, essentially. Another change is that they'll have to renew by October 1st of every year. It's been December 1st, and we end up chasing people around a lot because I think it's after the garden season is really kind of over. But maybe by October 1st, people are still out there working their plots and putting them to bed, and maybe it might be a little bit more in your mind. And I'll give a lot of credit to Lily. Lily went through these regulations and also looked at the variety of other towns' regulations and what's working for them. And so we didn't pull these things out of thin air. It's based on what's working in other areas. So do you have anything you'd like to add?
Not too much. I think as also the commission starts to think about fertilizer and kind of these other issues, we thought it would be a good time to consider that the community gardens are basically a wetland, if not in the flood zone, if not in the buffer zone. So starting to just be a little bit more specific in the language to make sure that we're striking this balance of a place where people can enjoy agricultural activities, but it's also being protected for conservation purposes. And as Amy said, really not a whole lot of changes. It's just more specific. And the things that we did add are definitely not to change the community gardening experience for any gardeners, but just to add more structure moving forward, I think.
And just clarity and a little bit less gray area. Most people at the gardens keep their plots in good order and abide by the rules and regulations, but there's a few that sometimes we have trouble with, and we feel like this just clarifies things a little bit more, and we can more easily point to things and say, these are our rules. But we wanted to bring it to you and see what your thoughts and ideas would be, as well as we did notify via email any of the gardeners that we had emails for. So some of them are in this room.
Okay, so do we have comments, questions? Sophia?
Do they sign this or just read it?
They get a copy. That's an idea. that as part of the sign-up process, that they sign at least that they received it. That's a good idea.
Nothing, no other questions right now.
Mark?
No, I really don't have anything to clutter this with.
All set?
Yes.
Vivian?
I think it looks good, and I like Sophia's idea of having, you know, people sign that they've received it, so then there's no misunderstanding. That's it.
Section E here, organic gardening practice are encouraged. Then it says chemical pesticides, herbicides, and synthetic fertilizers are prohibited. It doesn't sound like to me the organic practices are encouraged, sounds like they're mandatory. Which I'm okay with, but it's just the way it's worded is.
I understand. That's something we could talk about.
Okay.
That's a good point.
You all set, Wayne?
Yes.
Because that was my one comment, not exactly the same as Wayne's, but what's a synthetic fertilizer? I mean, it's really vague, and I don't know what you accomplish that way. It's part of the conundrum about fertilizers in general. I mean, particularly, you know, basically it's vegetables and ornamentals right in there, and what do people use? How do you encourage? I don't know what
Right
you would say
now, we
here.
encourage organic. We don't prohibit conventional, I guess what you call conventional fertilizers. So it's up to you if you want to. Changing it to all organic would be a bigger step that I think we would have to do more outreach on. Or maybe we just strike maybe we say we encourage organic and strike the other part for now.
Because I will say that the current regulations don't have really any reference to organic versus non-organic versus fertilizers. So, but that was something that other towns had incorporated.
Yep.
So I wouldn't strike the business about no pesticides.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, that's my suggestion. I don't know what other people think. But I just objecting to, I don't know what synthetic fertilizers means, actually. And I don't know.
That'd be
It's not-
also, if you
I
have the
don't know.
question, other people would have the question, so we can
Yeah, but-
certainly define that.
My understanding of synthetic fertilizer is something that's made from chemicals, see.
So we could
They
say chemical
manufacture it.
fertilizers.
I don't know. I know everything just about in the world is, but I don't know.
I don't know, do other towns specifically use that language, no synthetic fertilizers?
I can't say off the top of my head, but I don't think I would have pulled that out of nowhere if I didn't see that in some other.
Not that just because some other towns use
Yeah.
that language. I would get rid of that because I don't know what it means and I don't think anybody else will either.
Get rid of the synthetic.
Just the synthetic bit, still encourage organic.
Yep.
Encourage, yes,
practice.
but not prohibited the other ones. Yeah.
Get rid of the synthetic fertilizers.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, this may be a good opportunity to encourage soil testing on various plots and give the people the opportunity to make the amenities or the soil amendments appropriate to their particular crops.
That could be a hardship, though. I mean, they're.
Yeah, they don't
it's like
have to do
$50
it.
for a soil test, and I think it's a right thing to do, but I think in terms of requiring it,
Yeah. I'd be
Well, I'm
more
not saying- I'm
inclined.
not saying requiring it,
Yeah.
as a suggestion.
I'd be more inclined to try to find some funding for the town to be able to provide
Yeah, that'd be
some
great.
soil kits, if possible, rather than put the burden on the gardeners. But I think it's a good idea
yeah, I agree.
to, at least spot test certain areas. You may have some comments from the audience, too.
Oh, of course.
So if you do wish to speak,
Do
you'll
we?
have to come up to the table or the podium if you don't mind, just because we're being recorded.
Who would like to speak?
If I may.
You may.
Thank you. My name is Ernest Crabtree. Just a drafting comment under 2I. You have the end of season cleanup, and then you say loose materials such as cardboard, plastic, and landscape fabric are prohibited. Is that during the growing season or just in the off-season?
Maybe say prohibited to be stored in the off-season. It's right here. Loose materials such as cardboard, plastic, and landscape fashion are prohibited.
Yeah, I think we're saying in the off-season. I mean, loose, I guess, is the word there. They shouldn't be there at all.
Loose materials.
So you're saying prohibited
Well,
from being left on the sites
Yeah.
in the off-season? Okay. That's one. With respect to the fertilizer, I go back a ways and thinking about the conversations we had a number of years ago about prohibiting fertilizers in general.
Mm-hmm.
And our discussions always were centered on fertilizing lawns and having a built-in exemption for agricultural fertilizers. And there was nothing that we didn't want to restrict that in any form or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that in here, I wonder if we're being a little more conservative than we were in our thinking years ago. And I know that whole discussion is going to be coming up again.
Oh, yeah.
It's an ongoing discussion, so you don't want to do something here that you're going to allow somewhere else.
So I think the language that, organic practices are encouraged, but the others, we're not prohibiting other things. is
So you might want to say
probably-
organic practices are encouraged, including organic pesticides, herbicides, that sort of a thing. I mean.
I don't know enough
you-
about organic pesticides and herbicides to weigh in
Like
on
neem
that.
oil and things like that, I think
Right.
are organic pesticides.
Right.
So, there are exceptions that I don't want you guys to paint yourself into a corner with this stuff.
So you do say chemical pesticides, herbicides. We
It
should say
says
are
the way
dissuaded.
Yeah, I said, the way I've revised it is organic gardening practices are encouraged. Chemical pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers should be limited.
Or just are discouraged or something, limited.
But we're not doing that with our,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah,
In the
Okay,
town-wide, we're not doing that.
right.
But this land is particularly under care and custody of the Conservation Commission, so it can be different than the rest of the town, should they want it to be.
Yes. Yes, you could.
There's almost like an argument for making it a little bit more permissive because of what's being grown there, because
Mhm.
crops, like vegetables are heavy feeders, so
Right.
it's not like lawn where.
Understood.
Or, I don't know, I'm not gonna
Yeah,
specify.
It's hard.
Whatever. The uptake is pretty fast, so, I don't know. I get your point.
Mhm.
Just as a point of interest, there's a big difference in the volume of fertilizer that's going to be used broadcasting versus side dressing. Side dressing would be common for any type of row crop or plant material of that nature.
More direct, you're talking about.
Exactly. So the volume is substantially less.
So we're not talking here at all about limiting the amount of fertilizer people.
No.
There's nothing here that says there's a limit. What I thought we were getting a little hung up on is the pesticides.
Well,
And-
but here you're sort of asking your gardeners to get authorization for the use of any fertilizers, pesticides.
Where does it say that?
Well, are prohibited unless otherwise authorized.
Yeah, I think we can change
But
that
yeah,
language.
the revised
Well-
way would not.
That's what we were just talking about, getting rid of the synthetic fertilizer thing.
And getting rid of otherwise authorized or something like that.
Yeah.
We don't need any more work.
Oh, I see.
No, you don't, I'm sure.
So,
So could you just say discouraged, so for this?
That's what
like
I'm
you said,
saying,
chemical
yeah.
pesticides, herbicides, and synthetic fertilizers are discouraged.
Oh, I'm not sure you want to go that far.
Just leave it
Really?
alone.
Or just say,
Yeah.
Organic
Take it
gardening
out.
practices
Say
are
Are
organic
encouraged.
is encouraged, and let the rest
I would agree with
go.
that.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with that. Sorry. I mean,
John,
A,
well, this is not treating lawns. Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
I actually don't like, for the same reason I don't like the term synthetic fertilizers, I don't like the term chemical pesticides, because they're all chemicals. And it's kind of a meaningless statement. And the issue is that if you don't try to limit pesticides, and I assume, well, you know, people could be using herbicides or insecticides there for different reasons, but it's kind of a dangerous thing because there's overspray that can happen. Somebody can be,
It does.
even if all you're doing is spraying neem oil, which is not necessarily a great thing because it interferes with reproduction cycles of important insects. And so I think giving carte blanche is not a great idea. And if someone's just spraying neem oil, there could be overspray that gets on other people's plants, kills. You know, somebody brings in ladybugs or something because they're hoping ladybugs will help limit damage to their crops, and somebody next door is spraying neem oil and getting rid of the ladybugs. It just doesn't sound like a great idea to me.
I can't speak to practices that people employ as far as spraying these chemicals, pesticides, organics, whatever, in the gardens. My sense is that they're not using big broadcast sprayers in there like you'd expect to find in a, you know, somewhere else, that they're more targeted. Now, maybe some of the people that are here that have been in the garden could address that, I don't know. But that's my
if
sense.
you want to come up, there's public comment time.
My name is Liz Crabtree. I do notice that it is very contained there when it comes to sprays. You really don't have anything other than targeted hand sprays there that I've noticed, with the exemption of a couple plots that'll throw on a backpack and spray down the whole place, and it gets into other plots, and some plots don't want that. It's an open space, it's a windy day. I think that that would be more of an issue to tackle as opposed to the smaller targeted, because from my perspective, I do notice that there are more gardeners in there that do want to stay away from those things and stay as organic as possible. But there is also the matter of the airborne diseases in there. So, and it's very common. It's so a lot of people are trying to tackle the powdery mildew, and that is something that is being tackled on a daily basis, nonstop. It's an issue down there, but I do agree. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think that any kind of pump sprays or anything like that is. I think that those could possibly get regulated as opposed to the
Direct hand
yeah,
spraying.
the direct hand spray. And honestly, we also want the pollinators there. If I'm using neem oil, I'm making sure there are no bees around, or I'm doing it at a certain time, or trying to direct hit the leaves as opposed not the flowers kind of thing. And a lot of people do look out for that, and they want to eat as organic as possible, from what I've noticed.
Maybe, I mean, every year we tend to get a new influx of, you know, at least a third of the gardeners generally are new. So maybe maybe some public education about proper pest management techniques would be beneficial at the start of every year.
So, who does County Extension Service?
County Extension Service.
Do they have, I mean, might just insert a couple of links to, to best practices there? And maybe put some words here about pesticides that would provide an opening for people who think that somebody is being, overusing pesticides and affecting their garden, can come to you guys and make an issue out of it. It's
Yeah, I
like
mean, we could say, please
only
ensure that
targeted,
you're targeting your plot.
well,
Please don't do it on a windy day.
Yeah, that's big.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Could I make a note on that? Because you will see people come in and get frustrated that all of a sudden they walk in there one day and half their crops have powdery mildew on them.
Yeah.
And you kind of get this whole like, oh, I've worked so hard, I'm screwed now. And their last resort is to tackle it with spray and go nuts.
Right.
I've seen people get frustrated and not manage it properly. And maybe that could be a way to possibly look at certain plots. I don't know. But it does seem like if or when it does happen out of the ordinary, it's a big
Just trying to
production.
think of
Big
how,
production all at once.
how to do it, how to tackle that.
Well, let's
Food
see,
for thought.
Yeah.
let's see if we have anyone else in the room who wants to speak.
May I ask a couple more questions?
Sure.
Or do you want to stay on this topic? That's fine.
You're going off the community gardens topic?
No, I'm staying on community gardens,
Oh,
John.
okay. Sure, go ahead.
Well, my general question, and I'm just looking at, these are the regulations which are governing how the gardens are run and operated. Am I correct? Do we limit spaces, membership in the gardens to residents of the town?
We do not.
We don't. Why is
We
that?
started years ago when Chatham didn't have their own. And a lot of the people who were actually in our gardens were from, even more so, were from Chatham. We don't limit it. It's something that we can have a discussion on. Right now, we have a small wait list. But we typically are able to accommodate even those folks on a wait list within the first couple weeks of the gardening around June 1st, because people drop out. So we haven't found the need to limit per se. We are talking about limiting the number of plots that an individual and new individuals can have. We're not gonna take away plots from individuals who may have multiples now, but going forward, to make more plots available too, we're talking about limiting to 1 or 2 and not 3.
Okay, all right.
So that's a main discussion for the commission if you want to limit it to Harwich residents. Right now, going into the season, it's not a possibility. You already have people from other towns signed up and paid.
But, yeah, I'll just say, from my experience in talking with a bunch of gardeners, there certainly is a fraction of the gardener base that are just summer people, which I have to imagine would be kind of harder for them to maintain their plots if they're not here necessarily all the time. But just mention that as a little side note to that.
It'd be their responsibility, but before they leave, they have to button things up and maybe let us know, so.
How much does the water cost of us? We have to buy it, don't we, from the water
We
department?
have to buy it, so I did not get the CPC article in this year, but hopefully next year for a well. But it's costing us just about, honestly, as much as we bring in, if not a little bit more. So we have about 100 plots. It's about 4,000 to 4,500 a
Well, the
year.
Howard's taxpayers are paying for the water, and we have out-of-towners using it. Nothing, what's wrong with that picture?
That's,
Um,
okay, no, we're done, I think.
Are you all set?
Yes, we are, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Barbara Wilkie. On your point about the water, and if we're gonna have out-of-town residents, can you just charge more for out-of-town, like they do for shellfish permits for, you know, everywhere else?
It's not a bad idea.
Non-resident?
So we'd have to change our fees, the select board would have to approve of it.
Yeah.
And we probably, at this point, it would be for the next year, because this
Right.
year, people have already, that's a good point. I mean, we charge 40
Yeah.
for in-town, maybe you charge 60 for
Yeah.
out-of-town or something.
I'd favor doubling it.
Doubling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Non-resident, sure.
That's right.
So, was that, how, then you get the issue of just how you define what a resident is? I mean,
Tax, well,
Taxpayer.
yeah,
well,
full-time resident.
resident and non-resident taxpayers, you consider residents for the purposes of this discussion.
Well, if you're
Nothing's
If
easy.
you're a taxpayer in town already, you're a taxpayer,
Uh-huh.
regardless whether you live here or not, right?
Yeah, because there's non-resident taxpayers who have the summer homes here, they're non-resident
If your
taxpayers.
home is in Brewster, and you want to come have a garden in Harwich, that's a different story.
In other words, if you can get a resident beach sticker, you pay the resident fee for the.
Something like that, yes.
Okay. But we're not doing that now,
No.
right? Because we can't.
No, but that's something to,
Think about, yeah.
that we should be thinking about in the summer before the renewal time, October 1st.
Right,
So,
and even if we manage to get money from CPC to do
For a
a
well.
well there.
still gonna
it's
need money,
Still taxpayer
yeah.
money, that's paying for the well, and, so,
Right, so, okay.
yes, sir.
Are there many users of the garden that do not pick up after themselves? Is there a particular amount of energy that's spent having to?
There's a certain amount each year after we reach out multiple times for people who don't renew, but leave their stuff in their plots. There is some effort that needs to be made every year on our behalf to clean that up. Or first, we usually, if any of it's salvageable, we offer it to a new tenant or take it for use on the town's plots. But no, there's certainly issues with people leaving their plots not in the best order or just honestly abandoning them.
Do you find any of these people coming back to reapply?
I think we have it that they don't, we have the, do we have the ability not to grant them a new plot in certain instances?
I think that's worked in there, but to answer your question, yes, people that might have apparently abandoned their plot, some of them do come back to reapply.
Yeah, H kind of covers that, doesn't it? If a gardener is found to be disrespecting the space, fellow gardeners, public work, whatever, the Conservation Department reserves the right to revoke their membership and reassign their plot.
And we should probably add and not allow them to have another plot. We don't want to do any of this. Give people fair chances, but
Is it reasonable to assess a charge for cleaning up after somebody?
I was thinking about that, and I'm not sure what fee because we don't have a fine structure for that built in, so that would be a question that I would have to ask administration or council or somebody about, because I don't know.
They
I
have
mean,
a collection problem as well, right?
Hmm?
They have a collection problem.
It's gonna be a huge problem. I did ask how people
Yes.
were collecting, I think they can assess it.
Well, I would think, I mean, something similar to littering or dumping, but I'd have to ask that question.
Good luck collecting it.
It's worth.
Sorry, just want to add real quick, Liz Crabtree again. I just want to make sure that if there's perennials going on in there, maybe add something so that, make sure that perennials either get taken out, or I don't know how to
Oh,
approach
perennials
that.
removed out of, yep.
Or-
Or if the new person wants to keep them, but.
Right, I don't know how exactly to go about removing perennials personally. So maybe that should be some sort of,
Like raspberries?
I know how to remove those in small sections.
Video is called front end loader. Used on the plot. That's a good point.
Thank you.
Yep, I think that's something we can work in. We do have, I mean, you can't do like trees in your plot, so you can't plant an apple tree, in your plot. And then you'll want to shade out your neighbors, they won't like you for that, and it's awful hard to get out if you don't want it, so, okay. So getting back, I want to be, not to beat it into the ground, but the gardening practices, I want to know what, in terms of organic gardening and your language about gardening practices for E, how do you want that to read?
Organic gardening practices are encouraged. Eliminate the word chemical, but pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers are used sparingly.
Are targeted and used sparingly?
Yes, eliminate the chemical and the synthetic words
Yeah.
and the prohibited word. That's my suggestion.
We could say something like, should not broadcast spray or something like that, I don't know.
Yeah, we can add that.
Do not fog the area.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah. Simple.
But regardless, I do think maybe we can try to get, even if it's not an actual meeting, but maybe if we can have Russ or somebody from the county do a best management practices webinar that could be shared. Or maybe they've already got best management practices webinars on this type of stuff. We can look into that.
And we could also, like, similar to the bullet point above, where we link, like, the page 2 invasive
Mhm.
plants, like, we could link
Mhm.
best management practices, like you were saying, I think, John.
Yeah, because a lot of our gardeners are new.
I would think also, like, it's kind of a unique way to garden, like you're sort of like mini city gardening,
Mhm.
where your practices affect other people much more than in your
Right.
home garden, so it's just sort of its own animal. So I bet there's something out there, or if not, how to
Yeah.
be a good neighbor when you're gardening and
Right.
community garden.
That's so important. Be a good neighbor when you're gardening. So. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Do you want to see these retyped up before you vote, or are you comfortable? Do you want anything read back to you? Would you be comfortable approving with the language we talked about tonight?
Yeah. I don't know if, I think, like, I noticed earlier, there were other gardeners that came in and maybe, like, left throughout the meeting. And
Yeah.
I know some other people had expressed interest in coming also.
Mm.
Don't know if that's worth maybe considering, like doing some revisions or just voting on it now and then sending it out to them and getting feedback that way.
Probably should be retyped and.
Yeah, let's
nice and
redo
cleaned
it.
up and
Yeah.
good and professional and.
Let's put this on the
words
7th.
Crossed off and stuff.
Okay.
Let's put this on May 7th.
Yeah. Maybe we could.
But, and then we can retype it up
Yep.
quickly, send it out, give more people more time to
Yeah.
comment.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, so no need to motion anything for that. We got minutes, and then I want to talk about our next nutrient management meeting date. And then I have 2 announcements. Maybe I'll make the announcements now before, can I make the announcements now before everybody leaves?
Sure.
All right, so we have some really fun things planned for your April in Harwich. We have the Harwich Health and Environment Fair on April 19th. It's a Saturday. It's the day before Easter. Come get all your fresh greens and some produce from, I think, the Cooperative Extension for your festivities. But there's going to be 30 to 40 different vendors. Not really vendors, they're really giving things away. I mean, it's everything from health screenings to getting fresh produce to learning about sharks to getting your Arbor Day seedlings. And
When is this?
it is Saturday, April 19th at the 204 from 11 to 2. And it's on the town website. We'll probably put it on our website too. And then the Saturday after is the Harwich Tour de Trash Community Cleanup on the 26th. So join hopefully about 100 different Harwich residents in cleaning up our town. And so it's a concerted effort. A lot of towns are doing it in April. And it's mostly streets, but it is some, around public buildings, beaches. The gardens. Yeah, so you can actually sign up right now. The sign up for your favorite spot is available on the Harwich Conservation Trust website. So come, get your bags and pickers, go out and clean the town, come back for a chance to win a wonderful prize, and maybe some more seeds there too, because we are overrun with seeds. What else? We got that. Oh yeah, and our nutrient, the Conservation Commission is trying to bring nutrient management education a little bit more to the forefront because of water quality issues primarily. And on April 17th, I think April 17th, we're gonna have, I know it may not work for absolutely everybody, I'm so sorry, but our next educational session, 1 o'clock here. It's a Thursday. April was a really hard month, but I think we wanted to try to squeeze one in.
Can we all be
They're
there?
kind of like workshops.
Problem?
And we're trying to get speakers from UMass to come.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay,
I'll be there, whatever.
all right.
All right.
And then we got minutes. Oh, and our piping plovers are here. In abundance.
That's good.
Yeah. We counted 7.5 pairs in the Bank Street, Witchmere area today, and it's just like April 2nd, so.
Who do we call about? There's an awful lot of dead birds on the beach. What is that about? Is it?
So the question was dead birds, so there are in the winter certain amount of birds that die naturally, but we are seeing an uptick in dead birds,
Yeah.
likely because of bird flu. So on the health department's website is guidance. Just know that the beaches in Harwich have been called, the Department of Public Health has been called for them. And they've been notified if they want to pick up birds. If you see more than like 5 birds in a semi-small area, the Department of Public Health wants you to call them and let them know. problem is they're not really doing anything with the birds.
They're still
There
there.
are practices for safely picking them up without gloves, your, latex gloves, bags, and stuff like that, but unfortunately, the town doesn't have the resources to be picking them up either.
How do you dispose of them if you do pick them up?
I think it's on the website,
Okay.
but I'm not sure if it's the dump, if you can bring them to the dump. In a trash bag, I'm not sure.
I'll check the website. There's a lot of them.
There is, we saw a lot today,
Really?
in the Bank Street,
Yeah.
Witchmere area,
10 over the last
Really?
few weeks, yeah.
yeah. I am curious to see if it's gonna impact plovers or what, or the shorebirds.
Hmm.
Hope not.
Is it gulls people are finding on the beach, or are they?
It is everything. It is gulls, ducks, geese, everything. So, all right, those are my updates.
Okay, thank you. We do have minutes.
Yes.
Looks good to me.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have comments about minutes?
Vivian said she couldn't find a single error.
Oh, I meant to bring one in. I was gonna bring one in to show you that I had found at my house.
One
What?
An arrowhead, is that what you said?
Oh,
No.
error.
Errors.
But bring that in too.
See it, yeah, bring it next time.
Embarrassing.
Is it attached to an arrow?
That's right.
I mean, no, not
Oh,
anymore,
okay.
yeah.
All right,
We need a motion for the minutes, though.
we do.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of 3/19/25.
I'll second it.
Vivian got it, I think, this time. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
And you need to adjourn.
I have two things.
Oh.
Herring Run, how's the
The
walkway
fence,
coming? Yeah,
I'll contact them again. They've been busy.
that's
But,
their story and they're sticking to it,
mm,
huh? Okay. And also, just, I heard peepers the other night at the bog at my place, so.
Yep.
Spring peepers are out.
spring is here.
Yes,
It's official.
it is official, yes. Love hearing that sound.
Me too. So they've started the work on the
Yes.
Hinkley Pond Bog restoration over across from the tech school. So, busy. And they'll be doing the other bog after that. And while we're here, I'll introduce you to Lisa Shaw, who is going to be our new executive assistant to
Oh.
conservation and building come the 14th.
Oh, good.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Wow,
Lisa
you-
took it upon herself to come on her own time.
Wow.
And, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, there you, you're still awake, too. That's amazing.
There you go. Well, thank you for coming. So,
All right. I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting of April 2, 2025, of the Harwich Conservation Commission. Can you second?
I do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.